Well, top of the morning to you, Southern Oregon. I'm Alice Lima here with my co host, Pete Belcastro. We're both real estate brokers here in Southern Oregon for John L. Scott. And welcome to the Real Estate Show. We're here to talk about the local real estate and everything that's happening in our little valley. And it has been such an upheaval this week as interest rates are changing. Pete, what's been going on in your neck of the woods?
You hit it right on the nose. First of all, nice to see you. Look at this. We're in the middle of a heat wave. First of all, look, yeah, and that's miserable. And the amount of electricity we're consuming. You know, one of the things this has done in the water situation that we face, I think people are realizing that climate change is real, more so than maybe people want to admit, because it has changed. And boy, we're sure in for a long, hot summer. So please be careful if you're going to go out and about. Having said that, I think you hit it right on the nose. I think people are sometimes maybe getting ahead of knowing interest rates are going to raise. They've been approved for a loan, they haven't found one, and they're out there trying to find them. On the other hand, Alice, as we have watched week after week, listings have slowly crept up. And this week we'll give you those stats today and kind of what's going on, what's selling, where it's selling, because each individual market in each individual community in each county really is a little bit different. Combined, the market continues to perform really, really well. There's a lot going on, a lot of buying, a lot of selling, a lot of financing, but still the low inventory where it's at, it makes the market so interesting as we go through it for you each week.
Well, and Pete, anybody who owned real estate in the last 24 months got such a huge bump from the COVID and then from the fires. There's a lot of profit taking, and some folks are using that as a huge down payment on another property, which I think is just brilliant, because then you have still a reasonable payment, and you have this other bigger, better property, but not for long, depending on the rates, right?
Well, we've been saying, I remember when several years ago, we were saying, look, if interest rates turn around and change, all bets are off. Real estate has driven the market in the pandemic. And since then, it is still a driving force. But it's going to change. It has to change. We talked about plateauing, where, prices hit a plateau. I think that's still in effect right now. But boy, it's dynamic and it's changing, and I can't wait to share more information with everybody as well as you.
So we're going to have to take a quick break for our sponsor. So please do not touch that dial. We're brought to you by John L. Scott of Southern Oregon, Rogue Valley Association Realtors, and Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. Guy Giles. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, Southern Oregon. I'm Alice Lima here with Pete Belcastro. We're both real estate brokers here in John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. And one of the things that I noticed this week, Pete, as more listings finally come on the market in the lower price ranges, they're still getting a lot of showings, but they're not getting as many offers. Have you seen that?
Well, you maybe have it. Okay. No, I have. Yes, I guess yes and no. But we talked about it plateauing, that the market, as it changes, especially in midsummer, plateaued. You can't. I mean, Jackson County had a $510,000 average price a couple of weeks ago, and you can only go so high with so many things that are above you, and so it had to plateau. And I think maybe it is softening up a little bit, the plateau. I think that's probably good for everybody, to be honest with you, Alice. The craziness of 10 and 12 multiple offers, or sometimes even more, that doesn't really help anybody, to be honest with you, not even the seller sometimes. So we got to come back to earth a little bit, don't you think? I mean, we got to come down. We have to be more realistic here, especially going forward, because the future is there's a little more uncertainty out there, because we know the Fed has already announced they're going to raise interest rates, which means that mortgages, which are, you with 3.3, 3.2, where you're at, and some of these are probably going to go up. And that is going to change in terms of what you can afford to buy. And so the seller pool is going to be taking a big look. So that's so I can say, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we weren't talking about this yet too much. And now it's kind of become the topic du jour, because everyone knows this is going to happen. It's not like a matter of if anymore. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know if sellers understand when the interest rates go up, that will affect not only how many buyers they have available for their particular
Yeah.
property, but also what price the buyers will afford. And even if the buyers can't afford it, some part of a transitioning market is the buyers get a little bit fed up with the seller market and they start pushing back and they start being a little bit more demanding, and they just won't play ball in those higher price points for their market, for their neighborhood. So I think it's going to be an interesting rest of the summer. And then the other question I had for you is, in a normal cycle here in Southern Oregon housing, Pete, July is usually kind of quiet as people take their vacations and get ready to come back in August and go back to school. And I know the schools are planning on opening, but we've had so much back and forth with all of the families and the school age children. I wonder if we're going to have our normal summer cycle for buying and selling houses. What do you think?
Good question. I don't know. I know people are certainly out. I was out in RVing now in my world a little bit, and parks are full, people are full. There's a lot of people on the move. Maybe they're looking at that more so, as you're right, than real estate. But the market's performing well. I mean, I don't want to ever say that it's not. But let me just give you an example, Alice, of kind of where we're at here as we go into July, because it's the 4th of July weekend, next weekend, and so we're
Can you believe it? Here we go.
Do you remember the last year, the 4th of July at this time? Everything was still closed, and they were opening in July. There was an opening for a few months for businesses and restaurants in July. So, but this year is totally different. I mean, the demand and the people out, people have money, it seems like. I've heard of more businesses who had to close down for lack of help are getting more people back in work, which I think is a wonderful thing. So all that contributes, but we're still at such a problem with the total number of housing available to us and things like that. Here's the reason. There was 384 single family homes for sale in Jackson County last week. Okay. There was also 105 sales. Alice, that's a lot of sales.
Yeah, there's still a lot of hungry buyers out there for sure.
For 98 properties went pending last week, but our pool of available homes increased by 40 from the week prior, which I thought was very interesting. So again, the number of listings are going to be 160 in Josephine County and 131 in Klamath County right now that are on the market. What's interesting is, well, what is on the market, right? I mean, we know that the top sales are down below $350,000 out of that 105 sales in Jackson County. The majority are under 350 if you can find a house, and they go off the market in 2 days, in 3 days, in 4 days. So you have to be ready there. But still, it's the luxury market that is so interesting to me to watch, because in Jackson County this last week, of that 384 homes, Alice, 84 of them are luxury homes. It's about a quarter of the market are luxury homes. That's $900,000 priced and above. So that's a change. There's 34. Josephine County has 34 luxury homes on the market out of 160. And Klamath County has 12. So the luxury market is alive and well. But still, what's selling?
Exactly.
That area.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that's what makes it so interesting as far as when you look at the market. If you're still looking at 250 or you're cleared for 350, even 400,000, that is not changed in how long. That's the top area. That's what most people can afford. We've been able to go up to 500 and 600,000 because of low interest rates, and people have bought those properties, and they probably made a really good deal because they can afford those payments that they're getting with the low interest rates. That may be changing. So people are out there looking. There's no question that the demand is still there, and it's going to be, the next 2 months, it's going to be dry. It's going to be hot, please, no fires. So we don't have the smoke, that just drove so many people away from our valley. So,
Well, and the little lightning storm we had this week, it started a couple little ones. They got them out. It was all fine. We had a really good rain. Some people had hail. So, for those of you new to Southern Oregon, get used to it. If you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes, right? So,
well,
one of the situations, though, with the water is a lot of these rural properties that have deeded irrigation rights were priced with water. And so if you're on the market with deeded irrigation rights and your ditch gets shut off, or you start having to do some kind of conservation, what does that do to the value of those big farms?
well, first of all, even though there's no irrigation water in Klamath, Talon Irrigation District, these kinds of places, you still have to pay for your water rights. Okay, so you have to pay as if you were getting your full allotment. All right, first of all.
Yeah, people should know that. If you don't pay, what happens?
Well, you could lose your right to the water when it comes maybe
permanently. Yep.
What this really shown to me, I think more than anything, and again, people who live in the cities, Alice, are really immune from this. I know you live in Medford, and so you get water from Big Butte Springs and from the Rogue River and Medford Water Commission, which is the most amazing thing that they have their supplies most of the domestic water in the valley. But if you don't live in that urban area right now, things are really interesting. You talked about, you mentioned just about irrigation rights. What about wells? And there are tens of thousands of wells that are out there. And I'm hearing horror stories already of wells drying up much quicker than they ever have. Sometimes wells dry up every summer, say in Sam's Valley, and you got to bring water in, but it's happening more often in
some places in Sam's Valley. We're not condemning all of Sam's Valley.
No, absolutely. It's just a lot of them there. If they're shallow wells, I mean, deeper wells are different and things like that. Some are contaminated because of this. Anyway, that issue in terms of rural properties, agents and buyers really need to be aware of, and sellers need to know these things. Alice, so just in the last 3 months, okay, on rural properties in Jackson County, again, it had a 24% increase from the previous year, and the average, the median price for rural properties the last 3 months was $587,000.
Wow,
that's way of the urban price. Okay, so people are buying these, and if you advertise on them, and this is the thing that I think, and I even brought this up to Jeff Rogers, actually, the owner and principal broker at John L. Scott. We tell people you have irrigation rights, and we've been telling them for decades and decades, you got water. This year has proven to everyone that we can no longer guarantee that. And we're going to have to, I think, start assessing that, because in selling these properties and the value of them, saying you may or may not have irrigation water. You have the rights to it, but there's no guarantee you can get it. You may or may not have it, and you may or may not have it for so long. And so the reason that's important, that if you strategize what you want to do with the water, you want to have an orchard, you want to have a vineyard, you want to have pasture, that plays a real direct role in what you can possibly do. Because I really do think with climate change around us and what we've experienced this year, that we need to be aware of this stuff, because I don't think it's going to change much. And we're in a real dire situation here with water in the rural areas and the farming communities around us, not in the cities. Okay, I guess remember that, not in the cities. They got great water. Grants Pass gets its water out of the Rogue River. Medford gets it, Big Butte Springs. Klamath gets it out of the Conger Wells. It's not in the urban area, really. It's really in the rural areas that are really, really hurt by this and hit by it. And what will happen to real estate? I think their values cannot continue at $587,000, Alice, for median prices on
even
that. You just can't do it.
Even with water, it's not sustainable.
Even with water, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. One of the things I encourage people when they're buying rural property to consider is whether you're having a wet year or a dry year, to consider having extra storage. Even if you think you don't need it, putting in a storage tank. My personal favorites are the in-ground concrete water storage systems, 1,000 gallons, 1,500, 2,000 extra gallons. You can also have above ground. And then when you have a situation like this year, you can have somebody deliver water to you. And that's not as stressful. I don't know that you can have an ongoing farm with that kind of storage, but it could get you through some of the more difficult weeks.
You mentioned water delivery. Right now, it's an absolute madhouse.
Is it a madhouse?
Well, they used to be able to go to the Medford Service Center over on Columbus, and that's where you could pick up water there. The big bulk water. You can't do that anymore. There, you have to go out to the Duff treatment plant out by the Rogue River by Tuval State Park. That's where you get the water. But Alice, there's lines out there and for water, and there's only like one spigot, and there's big trucks come in there with carry several thousand gallons, etc. And I understand the lines are really long, and people I know get very frustrated. And water delivery right now is absolutely huge, and I don't downplay it at all. You just can't call up today and say, I need some water today like you used to, because this tap, the only place you can get it is out there at the Duff treatment plant out of from the Medford Water Commission.
Yeah, and you're competing with some of the bigger hauling companies that are filling up those big trucks like you were talking. Because people like me won't go fill up out of the spigot. I call Marie's or somebody.
I talked to at Coastal Alice. I said, my goodness, you've got all these it seems like hundreds of big holding tanks for water tanks. Those black, white ones you see when you drive by. He says the demand is great. All of them. So people are very much aware. They're capturing even rainwater. If you captured rainwater during the storm we had the other day, you'd have filled all your cisterns and all your tanks up with that off your roof had you had that in place. So the people are aware of it. They're obviously trying to adapt to what may be our new reality, just less water, and how precious it really, really is. And it is.
So we have to take a quick break. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima, both with John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, Southern Oregon. I'm Alice Lima here with my co-host, Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers here at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. And, one of the things that happens in a tight seller's market, Pete, is raw land becomes more attractive to people and they start considering doing building projects.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the phenomena that's come out of COVID is probably on two fronts, from what I've seen. One is yes, you can buy raw land now. You can, because it's cheap, relatively cheap still in some areas, not all, but you can put a manufactured home on it later. You can build a home on it later when you want it. People are saying, I need the land now before it's gone. And so we're seeing interest there for that type of use. I'm also seeing a use in rural properties. There's tons of areas, that are sometimes acts hard to get to, whatever. There's lots of 5-7 acre parcels around that people are buying to bring a RV, their RV to. They want a permanent spot to where they can then maybe put a deck out there, but not have don't have a well or don't have electric and things like that. But they can come out there and camp on their own property in their own space. When you got toys, when you got our ATVs you can ride around, that's fun. And so I think many people out of COVID thought that was something that they wanted to do. And I sold a property on that recently for that very purpose, just to be able to bring my RV there and camp on my own property. Nobody will bother me. It's not crowded. And I thought,
you don't have to have a reservation then. That's actually, yeah.
They'll pay if you can do that. So interest in land sales typically over time, lag behind the sales of new construction in residential sales. But we're seeing a lot of interest in vacant land, and I think that's good. People have variety and it's out there, and depending where you want to go, you can pay a lot or you can pay a little, but having your own place like that seems to be a very new popular thing to do.
I also think it is a indicator, this is just my opinion, but when we start having competition in raw land or a lot of price increase in raw land, I always consider that the crescendo of the market, the top of the market, and I start looking to the short-term future, medium-term future. That is one of the things I look for, because I consider raw land one of the weaker markets. And if raw land is getting competition, in-park manufactured home, and we're not saying anything bad about these kinds of property. We're just saying that they're not what is normally the popular with the general public. So if you start seeing a rise in competition on one of those two or both those markets, that tells me start looking for some kind of a downturn or adjustment. And I think in our case, it's just going to be leveling off. But boy, if you're fighting over raw land with no well, that's an indicator of some kind, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with you. I think we never really talk about raw land much. I don't have really sold much of it. There's a lot of it out there in different areas. It's not every area. You want to buy you couldn't do it in Ashland, for example, or Jacksonville, but you can in other places in the rural parts. So there's a lot of raw land out there. I'm surprised when you start looking. When you actually start looking, it surprises how much there is. But yes, there's much more interest in it because of those reasons. I can buy it now. I can use it later. I have a place to go. And so I think I think lenders need to get more in the game because it's pretty different. Is it difficult?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
My buyer had cash, which is easy, but lenders don't seem to want a loan on raw land, do they?
Because they consider buildings to be valuable in the event of a foreclosure. So that's the thing, is like the lender's always looking at, well, what if I get the property back? How am I going to sell it? So they really like buildings to be on it.
And that's why you have a lot of land out there, because it's hard to buy unless you generally have cash for those. So
if you own raw land, put a little money into it, borrow, $10,000 from Uncle Fred, and at least put in a well. And I'm not saying all wells are going to be 10,000. They were before the Corona. The well bid we got recently was higher than that. But the fact that we got a good well guy to talk to us, because I have a couple who's doing they're putting a manufactured on land, which is hard to do right now because of the fires and everybody's busy. And you have to hire a house transporter with a big flatbed to bring your manufactured home to your lot. And that's different from the guy who sets it up. But anyway, back to the well. If you are going to buy some property, it's nice if it has a well on it already, at least. And if you own property, think about improving it a little bit. Put in a driveway, put in a septic, put in a well. It'll be much easier to sell.
Here's a good one here. In selling the rural properties, the buyers are generally going to have a well test. Yes. Here we are in the middle of the drought. Should you do a well test? You're going to run that well for 6 hours, just put the water down the drain.
This is my favorite time to test wells, is during a drought.
I think that's a waste of water in these wells, and I don't know what the answer is.
You have to know, and you have to know. You do not want to buy a property and not do that stress test.
Well, okay. I think so be aware of that, because look, we're in the middle of a drought and a lot of these are going to go dry.
They don't have to run it on the ground, though. I do agree with you on that. And I never thought of that, is maybe they should be capturing that water. Well, it's going back into the ground. But anyway, yeah. I don't want to make it sound better than it is. They're running it for 4 hours on the ground. Yeah, that's what they're doing.
And part of the things and why it's important. I mean, it's important to do that. It's also important to get the well was tested now, especially in a water year, because it's worth knowing. There's been a lot of wells. I've talked with people who wells have been contaminated for different reasons. And we did a show, I don't even know when it was, a couple of years ago, on that particular topic, where different chemicals leach into wells and they render them, useless. And so you have to then have it redone and try to get Foster Drilling to come right now to you and do a well. They're backed up.
Yeah, some of those well people are booked out for a long time, months and months and months.
So all this, drives the price up and just delays. And I think the word patience right now is probably a good one to use in trying to find the help you need on these things. Try getting a manufactured home. It was over a year. With Holton Homes. Remember when we did a show with them before you even get one? You had the issues of timber, so you had try to get a remodeler, try to get the electricians. I mean, they're backed up, and you have to be patient with them. Contract especially, and so there's a lot going on because of the fires. So
But it's doable if you really, really want it to happen right now, and you understand you're going to pay ridiculous amounts of money and you're going to be late every step of the way. It is possible, because we're helping that one couple right now get their manufactured set up. But it is, it is every single day a nail biter. And they had to find temporary housing. They're hoping for just 90 days, but I'll tell you, Pete, it could easily be 6 months. But when it's all said and done, they're going to have a really nice spread, and they're probably saving 150,000 on what it would have cost if they bought already built. And that's why people go through this agony, is because that's a lot of nickels in your jeans.
Yeah. From a year ago, it's actually come down. A year ago, well, not even a year ago, listings were down, 60% from the previous year. And right now, as we sit here in June, they're down 50%. So we have seen an increase in listings. But the interesting part, when you break down and look at, say, Jackson County, is where are those 350 listings at? Where are they actually at? And I get to ask you this: what area? Could we East Medford, West Medford, Ashland, Jacksonville? What area do you think has the most listings right now in all of Jackson County? What area? Oh, I got it.
That has the most listings available for sale
on the market right now.
They're not selling. The most listings not selling. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So I would be tempted to say that we have a lot in Ashland or Central Point.
Okay, well, you're right with Ashland. Ashland has 83 listings. It is more than East Medford. And East Medford,
that's because they're overpriced, and a lot of them have stairs. Sorry, you guys. I love you, Ashland, but a lot of you have stairs.
Also showing the transitory nature of that town. That people come in there and they move out so fast. It has the highest number. I mean, it has almost the least down. If it's 50% overall, it's only 20% down in Ashland. You see, so it's why there's so many. East Medford is really down. East Medford is still down 60%. There's not a lot available in East Medford. You mentioned Central Point, and there's only 12 listings in all of Central Point. Right now.
All of Central Point.
All Central Point.
Yeah, and Central Point's really popular.
Yeah, it truly is. And these listings, and also just to be aware of how fast sometimes they go off and they're scooped up. That's why we tell you have to have those pre-approvals with you. I believe this last in April, and the National Association of Realtors, I believe, said 50% of all mortgages in the United States in April, people had put down 20% or more.
Yeah, they're taking profit. Yeah, they've got all this equity. It
was only the third time that's happened. And so you have to be really ready, because those properties that you want are so go off the market so fast. The hottest market has been for quite a few months now has been Josephine County.
Yeah.
They go off their average days in the market, and they had 22 sales last week, closed at $439,000 for the average price, and they went in 41 days.
Well, and we just had people who lived here in Jackson County that became remote workers, and they just scooted over to Josephine County and Klamath. But yeah, I think there were just a lot of locals that shifted to that zip code.
Well, that's okay, because finding replacement property forces so many people out. And as we talk about rent, especially in the rental markets and stuff, if houses are sold and new owner occupieds come in, where do those renters go? And as you know, many of them have to leave the area. That's what gentrification is all about. And have we hit that point in Jackson County? I don't know, but if our average price is going to be, in the 500,000 range, it's certainly going to eliminate a whole lot of people in our community, and no one wants to see that. So the answer to that: how do we build? Right? What are we building? What's going to be new? Did you see? I saw where Warren Buffett was invested in a company that prefab homes, small homes. They ship them out to you like Sears did in the old days, but these are already done. You just put them together.
Isn't that great? Like IKEA of houses. Yeah.
motel conversions that we've seen. Representative Pam Marsh a few weeks ago was with us, told about the bills to convert, older motels, which they're doing all over in Klamath and in Medford, for housing, to helping homeless issues. So, there's a lot going on in besides just the buying and selling, is trying to get people, where do you go and how do you replace where you're coming from? And that's still a huge problem. That has not changed. The rental market is still a huge problem, as well as, as rents go up, as the inventory has shrunk because of the laws that were passed. So, while the market itself just chugs along buying and selling like this, the rest of the market is still in flux and in turmoil in a lot of areas.
So we will be right back from a word from our sponsors. Do not touch that dial. Pete Belcastro and Alice Lima with the Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. Good morning again, Southern Oregon. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lima, and I'm here with my co-host, Pete Belcastro. We're both real estate brokers here in Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. And we're chatting again about our Market Watch episode of our radio show. And this week, we're starting to see not only more listings, but the buyers pushing back a little bit. Pete, I had a couple of different situations where buyers wrote really good offers. They got a counter back from the seller. 2 times it happened this week. The buyers walked away. They just said, I'm not doing it. They just said, I will wait a couple weeks to see if something else comes on the market. And you know what? It did. Mm-hmm. So it's coming in trickles. It's coming in trickles, but it's interesting, the attitude of some of the buyers.
Yeah, no, that's what you call the plateau that we've talked about, because you can only go so much and buyers are only going to do so much. And they know that you're seeing more listings come on the market. We certainly should. The low was, I went back and checked my little stats back in January. At the end of January, there were just 238 listings in Jackson County, 238. So we're at 384 right now, but look what come on the market and sold. So that may not sound impressive, but it really is when you think that there were just hundreds sold and hundreds are still pending. So, we have that to contend with still, but they're coming back, and that makes it people saying, I'll wait until the next one comes up. I don't have to do this. Maybe I don't have to leave. Maybe I'm in a good position as a buyer. If the buyer's in a good position where they don't have to do something, in other words, your lease is not ending, or you've already sold your place or whatever.
Or you saved up all your money from the shutdown. You have buckets of money in your house. You can wait.
I want to put more down on a down payment, and that means something to a seller when they see that too. So there's a lot to it. I think the biggest thing is that you have to be prepared. You have to be able to walk away, as you say. Don't do something that's going to put you in a bad position in the future with this. I thought Guy Giles had a good point a couple of weeks ago with their new pre-approval process, to where it's already it's the second phase has gone through when they give it to you, that you've got that. You don't have to wait. I'm waiting right now on several, waiting for the loans, to be finally approved. And it's nerve-wracking sometimes. And a lot of times, as you know, things fall through. And that's another point before out of here, is that even though maybe you didn't get the house you wanted and it's pending, many times, and don't think that doesn't happen, because it does happen quite a bit. They come back on the market because it's fallen through.
Yeah, writing backup offers is a great idea.
So yes, if you really do like it, I would say go ahead and do the backup offer, because you never know. That's how I got my first house in Ashland back in the early 90s.
Is that right?
We were the second spot. It fell through and we got it. So
wow.
And it happens a lot. So don't be turned off sometimes, because you can write backup offers for quite a few things. You can have 2 or 3 or 4. It doesn't really matter, but if you really like it, if you lose it, don't walk away from it, because that can come back and help you.
So how much impact on the number of new listings coming? How much the vaccination situation, that we have more people vaccinated, how much of that do you think played into people being willing to list their house now?
Well, I we had a lot of uncertainty and people didn't go. It was always about, where do I go? And I think it's still that way. You've always said some people die, people get divorced, people move for jobs. Those are, you have to do something. The others, we don't have to. And if we go, where do we go? And that has been the problem from years and years, quite a few years now around this. Where do I go, especially with low inventory and the prices the way they are? So people do. So if you're going to go, sometimes you have to leave the community. That's what we're talking about. You have to go someplace else.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I've got people that, again, are remote workers, and they got to go back east to Florida, Georgia. We've got some that went to Tennessee. They're having the time of their life. They have the great job. They're in a housing market that's a little more comfortable, and they're happy with their environment. So sometimes, life pushes you in those directions, and it ends up being really good.
But you're also talking about a very tiny portion of the market overall, people who can do that.
Those are people who can either take their job with them, or they're retired and they take their pension with them.
Yeah, they're not the workers who do, who work out in down everywhere. So that's a small part. And I think before we also go, another effect that we're going to see go on are really hitting small towns, who don't have much inventory anyway, but where people are moving to even further out. Let's say, if you left Medford, a lot of times you go to Eagle Point. Remember, that's where you went to get away from things. Now you're going to go to Prospect. In Josephine County, well, I went here. Now I'm going to go to Wolf Creek. Klamath, I was here. I'm going to go down to Merrill. I'm going to go down to Malin. Because for those places. But what's happening there now is that the pressure on those communities, which don't have much housing, is also driving up prices there. So again, as we get out of here, we had in the last 3 months from a year ago, a 24% increase in the value of our overall in the counties. It varies by community.
Isn't that something?
But 24%, that is a huge number. We haven't seen that number. I've never seen that number that high, as we watch this. So it's a huge issue right now. And affordability is coming into play. We're a great place to live, and demand is there. What happens this summer is still up for grabs with fires, with water. So we don't know what's going to happen the rest of the summer. But it's going to be interesting to find out, I think.
Well, and if we keep getting more listings, that's going to affect the prices as well.
Number one. But they can't be luxury homes, Alice. My goodness, a quarter of the market.
Well, and I have a belief that even in the $1 million price range, you have a certain period of time to sell a property. Otherwise, you're off base with your price, or there's something wrong with the property, and you need to look at that. So the idea that $1 million properties take a year, I don't think anything should take a year. You should not be languishing a few months, maybe just to test the market, get some feedback. But not a year. If it takes a year, something's wrong.
I wish I was in the market for $1 million property, because the choices.
Yeah.
You've never had as many choices as you can for a buyer. But by God, I'm looking at $350,000 or $400,000 or $425,000.
Well, this is why the group purchases are so popular right now. Where families are coming together and buying them together, then they can hit that $1 million mark. Yeah.
Well, it's opportunities that are out there, and we'll see what happens. We'll watch interest rates this week, see if anything changes there, Alice. I hope they don't.
Well, they started right yesterday on Friday. They started going up a little bit. They're already starting to, these agencies are starting to move it up. So yeah, it's already happened. If you're not locked in, get locked in.
And that's what I think people are trying to do right now. I think if we had talked to the lenders, they're pretty busy because people know this is coming. Get locked in if you can right now. Yeah, there's a lot to it. Be ready. Because as we say, the market changes every darn day. Every week we get with you, it's different.
Yeah.
This week was different than last week. It really was. And
but that's why we have to talk about it every week, because it's volatile. It's a volatility.
We really want our viewers and listeners to be good consumers here and be very smart and cognizant of what you're doing. And then it becomes more fun, and not a burden.
Less scary.
If you know what you're doing, you know what to prepare for, it just makes the process a lot more fun. You have a great week, and stay cool, but safe. The weather is so hot. Please be safe.
All right, Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima signing off. There's another rendition of this tomorrow at 6 p.m. Thank you, John L. Scott, Guy Giles of Mutual of Omaha Mortgage, and the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. We appreciate our sponsors very much. Have a beautiful weekend. Bye now.